Is Lilith, Adam's first partner, a myth, or is her spirit, in fact, still moving through the world today? In this video, we explore Lilith, not just as a symbol of feminine rebellion, but as a living, breathing energy, and one that whispers through the collective consciousness, stirs unrest, and awakens the untamed feminine. What happens when her spirit is invoked into the world, and could her energy be shaping current worldwide events? Well, we explore this and so much more. Now, before we get to the psychic energy read on Lilith, I'm just going to take a moment and introduce myself to you. My name is Faye, and I am an energy reader, an intuitive, and a psychic. And this is Solar Flow, a channel where we decode the behind the veil layers of energy, vibrations, psychology, and soul contracts with celebrities, celebrity relationships, and true crime, and also decode metaphysical concepts. So if you are into deep reads, energetic insights, and inner truths, you are in the right place, and I invite you to subscribe for more exclusive content. Now, before we get into the psychic energy reading on Lilith, we're first going to start by exploring some information that was acquired off of Lilith's Wikipedia page. So here we go. Lilith is a feminine figure in Mesopotamian and Jewish mythology, theorized to be the first wife of Adam and a primordial demon. Lilith is cited as being banished from the Garden of Eden for disobeying Adam. And 2% personal opinion, I guess because the patriarchy infiltrated even mythology? Question mark? Now, the original Hebrew word from which the name Lilith is taken is in biblical Hebrew, in the book of Isaiah, though Lilith herself is never mentioned in any biblical text. Now, the original Hebrew word from which the name Lilith is taken is in biblical Hebrew, and the Hebrew word Lilith or Lilith translates to, I kid you not, night creature, night monster, night hag, I mean, this is just unkind, or screech owl. I guess because patriarchy? I don't fucking know. Like, such derogatory terms to describe this poor woman, my God. In the Akkadian language of Assyria and Babylonia, the term Lilu or Lilitu means spirit. So essentially, the combination of these two languages led to her being referred to as a female night being or demon. And thus, then, therefore, commentators often envision Lilith as a dangerous demon of the night who is sexually wanton. Like what? Really? Why are women always, in the negative sense, sexually wanton? But I digress. Who steals babies in the night? Because it's not bad enough that she's sexually wanton, she also steals babies in the night. Okay. In Western esotericism, the depiction of Lilith continues to be popular among Wiccans and in other modern occult practices. But because this is modern Western theology, she is never considered to be sexually wanton, no. A few magical orders dedicated to the undercurrent of Lilith, featuring initiations specifically related to the arcana of the First Mother. Now this is where things take a rather interesting turn. You'll see why in a moment. So 2 organizations that use initiations and magical associations with Lilith are the Ordo Antichristianus Illuminati. And yes, it says Illuminati on Lilith's Wikipedia page. So can we finally just dispel this notion that the Illuminati is a conspiracy theory? And the Order of the Phosphorus. Lilith appears as the succubus in Aleister Crowley's De Arte Magica, and Lilith was also one of the middle names of Crowley's first child. Now, Lilith's name is to date associated with goddesses in covens and by some priestesses, and many theistic Satanists consider her to be a goddess. And she is in fact so popular with Satanists because of her association with Satan that many in fact believe Lilith is married to Satan. Thus they think of her as a mother figure, and they revere her as being a sex goddess. But it is not just Satanists that view her in this way, because many others as well do consider her to be a goddess of sexuality and the personification of erotic dreams and suppressed desires. This actually sounds quite a bit like Sigmund Freud, so you might want to check out the video I have done on Sigmund Freud, which I have linked down below. I wonder if Lilith had been visiting Sigmund Freud in his dreams and gave him all of his wacky theories about sex and sexuality, but that's not here nor there. So that's going to conclude the information share on Miss Lilith, and we are now going to be getting into the energy reading portion on her. So here we go. Lilith is in fact a demon spirit. Now this is something I discussed in the video that I had done on Adam and Eve and the story of creation, which I have also linked down below. If you have not yet checked it out and you want to, it will make a lot of sense about some of the things that I'm going to share here. But don't worry, you don't have to stop this video and run to watch that video to make sense of the things that I'm going to share. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what had come in relation to Lilith in the video that I had done on Adam and Eve, which is that Lilith was the first female that Adam was with. But because Lilith is and was a demon spirit, she corrupted Adam's energy by introducing him to sodomy, which in turn connected him to her kundalini and also led to him siphoning that demonic energy off of her, which led to Adam's own energy being corrupted. So Lilith was a point of contrast for Adam, and she continues to be a point of contrast to today. And here is how and why. First of all, Lilith is hella fucking old. But I'm not saying she's hella fucking old because I want to throw shade at her and call her a night hag. No. But it's because she is in fact old, fucking ancient old. Because depending on your belief, she is either over 4 billion years old, which is the estimated age of Earth according to science and scientists, or she is close to 6,000 years old according to the age of creation in Judaism. But either way you slice it, she's fucking ancient. Because Lilith has been around since the dawn of time. I shit you not. Since the dawn of time. And whether you believe in the Big Bang Theory, as in the universe just combusted and began, or believe that God created everything, whatever your beliefs are, whenever the universe began, so did Lilith. According to the story of creation, it was the very first day that God created light and dark. And what is that? Well, it's opposites, as in contrast. So contrast has been coded into the DNA and the energy of the entirety of the universe. So that is whether here on Earth or on other planets or any dimension, contrast exists, and contrast was specifically coded into the creation of the universe. Now, another thing that was created on the very first day, along with light and dark, was angels and demons. Because our angels not of the light, and our demons not of the dark. And as I shared at the top of the video, Lilith, being a demon spirit, she was created on that very first day of creation, along with light and dark. So again, whether you believe in the religious story of creation or the Big Bang Theory, on that very day that the universe was created, in whichever way it was created, Lilith too was created in order to fulfill her role in providing contrast. Now, Lilith is not the only demon or demon spirit, but she is the demon spirit that was specifically created for the purpose of contrast. And Adam, being the very, very first man that was created in the newly created earth plane, was the first man to experience Lilith and her contrast. But he was far from the last, because the essence of Lilith lives on till today. And how does the essence of Lilith live on till today, even though Adam himself has long ago expired? Well, Lilith was never destroyed, nor would God have chosen to destroy her, since she was created specifically with the intention of providing contrast. But aside from that, being a demon spirit, her energy is one that is akin to wind. So Lilith flitters about, literally sometimes like a leaf being lifted from one location by the wind and placed down in another when the wind stops blowing. As in, Lilith is non-corporeal, as in she has no physical form. So anyway, how does one destroy the wind? Well, you don't. Because you can't. And how does one stop the wind? You don't. Because you can't. But as we have perhaps seen, the world appears to want to be using natural elements to create some sense of power. And they are looking to utilize the natural elements for it, such as solar power or wind turbines. So in essence, while these things can never be destroyed, they can in fact be harnessed. And depending on who harnesses that energy will determine what it is being used for. So think of a genie in a bottle. The genie within itself is neither good nor bad, but is completely neutral. But imagine how differently the power of that genie would manifest if it was in the hands of, say, Justin Baldoni or Blake Lively. Doesn't matter who you believe is right or wrong in this case, or who is telling the truth and who is being deceptive in this case, because no matter who you believe, one is essentially right and one is essentially in the wrong. So it's the exact same thing here with Lilith, as in it does not matter who may be impacted by her contrast, the end result still shows up the same: contrast. Lilith can literally start a war just as easily as she can cause Adam to realize his partner, as in her, Lilith, was not good for him and cause him to seek out a more aligned partner for himself. They are both contrast, are they not? Now, one may be considered a low vibe version of contrast, as in starting a war, and one may be considered a high vibe contrast, as in Adam realized he was being dysregulated by his partner and then choosing to seek a more highly aligned one, because they're both born from the exact same place: contrast. Now, all of this discussing Adam and his relationship with Lilith got me thinking about the relational dynamics between men and women as a whole, and got me thinking that we have seen a lot of contrast between men and women in the last couple of years. And have we not seen a lot of contrast in the last few years, and specifically in the role of women and men? So, pithy memes aside, and cute content creators creating reels making fun of emasculated men and their hyper masculine female partners, what is the last few years if not a demonstration of gender contrast? But I'm also going to share with you whatever it is we see now in the current has actually been bubbling up deep beneath the surface for many, many years. So it's kind of like a volcanic eruption. We only see the eruption, but before the eruption of the volcano, there was a buildup of pressure beneath the earth. Now, Lilith, too, and her influence has been building up for many, many years. We are just now only seeing the evidence of it. And it has been building up for many years in various different increments since as early as the 1950s. Now, a few really notable times were shown to me akin to sparks or flare-ups of more notable periods of the expansion of pressure building up, and a few of them were in fact fairly close together. So here's the specific points that were shown to me. First was the Summer of Love, 1967. So this was a period that was anti-war, anti-establishment, free love, which also equated to sexual promiscuity. The next point that was shown to me as being important was Roe versus Wade in 1973, which somehow ruled that the Constitution protected a woman's right to abortions, which also happened to have overrode state laws, as in it took away power from the people. Then it was next shown to me that there was a clusterfuck of activity beginning in the 1980s. First and foremost, when famous male actors were pretending to be women on popular TV shows, followed by the grunge movement in the 1990s, which led to so-called heroin chic, when female models more resembled men than women, followed by Mrs. Doubtfire and Robin Williams dressing up and pretending to be a woman. And then culminating in the late 1990s with none other than the Lilith Festival, a music festival that was headlined with only female musicians. Now, at face value, the Lilith Festival would appear to be nothing more than an event born from altruistic reasons, right? Which is just like the Summer of Love. Altruistic, great idea. Anti-war, anti-establishment, so let's all get together, do a bunch of drugs, and open up our physical vessels to the spirits on the astral realm, and then fuck like rabbits, so we're all exchanging that demonic energy that we've accumulated from the entities that inhabited our bodies because we opened them up with drugs. Thank you, universe, for punctuating that. So too then was the Lilith Festival also apparently born from altruistic reasons. It's all about women. It's about diversity and empowerment. And because Lilith's story was even reframed by saying that she was Adam's first partner that was banished because she did not listen to him, well, even more so did this somehow then apply to the Lilith Festival. Because she was not obedient and she was not meek, and neither were these female artists, making it all the more applicable to the reason the festival was named the Lilith Festival. These female artists that banded together were going to banish the confines of the box that they had apparently been put into by being told that a woman headlining a tour or putting more than one woman in a lineup would not sell concert tickets. Which, while I was channeling, my conscious mind was interfering, and they were like, hello? Has anyone ever heard of Madonna? Or even Whitney Houston? So are we to somehow believe that Madonna and Whitney Houston couldn't sell concert tickets? But shut up, repressed feelings over facts. So fuck you, male executives. We, as in the female artists, are going to all band together and we're going to prove you wrong. Again, at face value, sounds so wonderful and noble, does it not? It seems so altruistic, does it not? Except, I remind you, Lilith was not ever in fact banished, and certainly not because she didn't obey Adam and because she was not meek. Because again, you cannot stop wind and you cannot control it either. And then neither then can you stop or control or banish Lilith. She's a demon spirit. Demon spirit. Spirit. And just like Satan's spirit can be summoned with blood, sex, magic, rituals, guess what? So can Lilith's. But one need not do a blood, sex, magic ritual to summon her energy into the world, because her energy is already coded into the DNA of the very fibers that the universe was created on. So it's far, far easier to summon Lilith's energy than it is Satan. All one needs to do is say her name 3 times consecutively. That's it. And no, I am not recommending anybody here try it, but whatever, you do you, boo. But even without saying her name 3 times consecutively, even without that, it's ridiculously easy to summon Lilith's energy. Because, I remind you, she's like the wind and she just flitters about. And since she's already been coded into the very fibers of the fabric of the creation of the universe, all one actually really needs to do is just say her name 1 time, and that is in fact enough to get her attention. And if you're wondering, hey Faye, why then do you keep saying Lilith's name? Are you not worried about summoning her? Don't worry, we get there, keep watching. But as I said, it is in fact enough to get her attention, and she will flit on over like the wind, picking up that leaf and delivering it right to your front door. So in the summers between 1997 and 1999, when the Lilith Festival was running, how many times do you think Lilith's name was uttered? As in, how many people do you think were unknowingly summoning Lilith's demon spirit energy into the world and welcoming that energy at a huge convergence of it at all the cities and towns that the Lilith Festival performed in? Now, this may then beg the question if I think that the Lilith Festival's founder, Sarah McLachlan, knew that this is what was happening when she had dreamed up the festival. And the answer is no. The wind in Sarah McLachlan's sail, as in the spark in the tinder of her drive, was again, I remind you, contrast. And contrast is neither good nor evil, it just is. It was born from a perceived slight that Sarah McLachlan experienced against female artists. It was a wrong that she wanted to see righted and took the initiative to correct it. And this is then where the example of a genie in a bottle being neutral itself, but the wielder of the genie in the bottle will determine the application of that energy. As in, Is it used for good or evil? For wrong or for right? For light or for dark? Because contrast is in it all. Contrast is both. And in fact, contrast is everything. Because I again remind you that contrast is coded into the very fibers and fabric in the existence of the universe. So it's everything. This is going to explain why altruistic intentions can have negative effects, like Sarah McLachlan dreaming up and creating the Lilith festival, but also why negative occurrences can create positive outcomes, like Lilith corrupting Adam and causing him to seek a more positive and aligned partnership, which led to the creation of Eve. So then perhaps hearing this, you too can give yourself just a little bit more grace as you navigate the ups and downs of the contrasting landscape of your own life experiences. Because contrast is everything that our soul came to the earthly domain to work with, to work through, and to play with as well. So then, don't worry if your positive intentions have previously or may in the future cause a blowout or some unforeseen fallout in your life, because it's all due to the influence of contrast. And contrast always leads to the creation of balance. And as I have spoken about this in the past, the universe always seeks balance. And one of the tools that assure balance is in fact created is contrast. Hence why the very first day of creation consisted of light and dark, because really there is nothing more contrasting than that. And if you yourself sometimes feel like you are out of alignment, that's okay. That's contrast. Because sometimes we don't know what we truly want or in fact need until we have the opposite. Because again, contrast. Similarly, please do not beat yourself up over other times when you were disempowered or were living out of alignment, because that too was an act of contrast that you needed to experience to get yourself back into alignment and to find your own power. Because it's all contrast. It is all our souls seeking and creating balance through the contrast that we have experienced. Now, in case you're wondering, can contrast be manipulated? The answer is unequivocally yes. And as I have shared with you, in most cases, what we actually see playing out on the world stage at this time is in fact a manipulation of contrast, or it is an exacerbation of contrast that already exists, because it has been coded into the very fibers of the fabric of the universe. Creating further contrast is not then considered usurping our free will, and it is also not going to be considered interfering with us. Because, as I have shared with you in other videos, Team High Vibe, their first tenet is the law of non-interference, as in they cannot interfere nor usurp our free will. But by working with contrast, which naturally already exists, that's not considering usurping our free will. However, just like Team High Vibe cannot usurp our free will, but they can work with it to create further contrast to continue to wake people up, similarly, Team Dark Side can definitely manipulate contrast, but they're manipulating it for a different reason. Here's why. Contrast is in fact being manipulated by Team Dark Side because it is done so with the intention of eliciting a certain response within us, such as hate, which is an artificial version of an us versus them mentality, or envy between the haves and the have-nots, which creates a modern day caste system, or most notably and most specifically, fear, as in orchestrating what appears to be worldwide events playing out that create a lot of fear. An example of that would be any war, whether it's localized and centralized to one region, or it's the promise of a nuclear war. Any war is going to elicit a lot of fear. Fear is also the heaviest and the densest human emotion, which also happens to create loosh. And fear, being the heaviest, densest human emotion, also creates the most potent and delicious form of loosh. And what is loosh? It's sustenance for the entities that reside on the astral plane. And if you want to learn more about that, I have linked a video down below in which I do a deep dive into loosh and the entities on the astral plane. So again, loosh is the sustenance for the entities that reside on the astral plane. And who or what are some of those entities residing on the astral plane? Yes, they're demonic entities and demonic spirits. And who might one of those demonic entities and spirits be? You guessed it, Lilith. A demon spirit, a demon energy, as in a demon entity. So this case of Lilith being a demon entity and benefiting off of the production of loosh is not a case of Lilith being controlled and manipulated, as in the genie in the bottle being wielded by the person that owns that bottle, but is actually more akin to the genie in the bottle directing the person who has possession of the bottle that said genie resides in. So it's akin to the genie actually directing the owner of the bottle to do their bidding. Because the genie does not have a body, so it cannot do its own bidding. But also because that genie that's in the bottle is getting the human to do their bidding for them, because the genie is not free. Just as in Lilith isn't free either. And Lilith is not free because she was created specifically for the purposes of creating contrast. Because she cannot be anything other than what she was created to be. And she cannot be anything other than what she in fact already is. And that got me thinking about people creating contrast for us in our day-to-day life. And while I am not suggesting that Lilith is in fact a narcissist, but for example's sake, anyone that has had an entanglement with a narcissist, whether familial or romantic entanglement, was that narcissist not a big source of contrast for you in your own life? Does the narcissist ever change? No. Neither does Lilith, because it's what she was created for. It's who she came to be, and it's what she does. It's in fact also what they came to do. And it's who they came to be. As in the dark to our light. And thus, their purpose in creating contrast for us is divine also. Every finished book invites the beginning of a new one. And every closed chapter of our life beckons the start of a new one, and a new one that will absolutely be sure to include contrast. Just like Lilith. Because she is an energy that was coded into every fiber of the fabric of the universe. So despite all that she did and all that she continues to do, believe it or not, Lilith's energy too is completely neutral. So perhaps knowing that, we can reframe our own life and our own contrast, not through the lens of it being good or bad, but just being a catalyst for change. Because truly, the only constant in the world is change. So in that regard, has Lilith not fulfilled her purpose in the world? So that concludes my Behind the Veil Psychic Energy read into Lilith. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video, perhaps found it to be thought-provoking or maybe insightful. This is where I'm going to remind you to take what resonates, leave the rest behind, and as always, and until next time, stay in that high vibration.